Watling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that leave be given to bring in a bill to make provision about the scrutiny and approval by Parliament of appointments to senior civil service roles and for connected purposes. Mr. Speaker, in this nation, people rightly expect this elected and accountable Parliament to oversee an impartial civil service. However, the notion of distance and unaccountability has grown amongst the populace like a spectre, and I think it's time that something was done about it. This has been caused by unnecessary tensions on both sides and casts aspersions on the majority. In my view, Mr. Speaker, we need this reform because there is nothing more fundamental to our democracy than the relationship between Parliament and the civil service. This is the mother of parliaments, and our civil service is held to be the gold standard in the world of officialdom. And when elected members and the civil service row in the same direction, we are startling. We're able to produce results in this place that beat fascists, built the NHS, and indeed won the Olympic bid. When the conduct between us becomes strained, when confidence is undermined, and when accountability or trust or respect seems lacking, we then get cast iron assurances regarding matters such as weapons of mass destruction and subpar PPE contracts. And as a result, perfectly sound policies get stalled. Now, I'm sure all colleagues will agree that our civil service is a great one, as is our Parliament, men and women dedicated to the public good. But recent years have been plagued with more and more tensions arising which fundamentally impact the discharge of governance and policy. Let us consider the issues we've seen in recent years and how they tell of structural deficiencies rather than being merely isolated accidents under a particular administration. The Sue Gray affair, I think, should alarm us all, whatever side of the House we sit. To have a civil servant preside over an investigation into a Prime Minister and then achieve escape velocity from the civil service to go and work immediately for the opposition has scarred the view of impartiality that the majority rightly accept and expect. The same could be said of the role of political appointees. In many ways, we can view certain Labour and Conservative spin doctors as essentially the same entity, unaccountable to the public, but very much imposed on the public, beyond the advisory role for which they were initially intended. Both of these issues could be addressed with updates to the Constitutional Reform and Governance Act 2010, which sought to better control apparatus such as special advisers. However, if you wish to fix an issue, you need to amend a culture that goes with it. And to do that, my view is to start at the top, Mr. Speaker. You need a culture that the majority of the service still respect. Now let us define that top and the route to it. The great mandarins who hold vast power are often faceless. That cannot be right in a democracy. If you want power, you must be subjected to the sunlight of this place. Permanent secretaries are appointed under a scheme in which the Prime Minister has the final say in the recruitment process. The Prime Minister alone chooses directly from a list created by the Civil Service Commissioners. If anyone here, without the aid of Google, of course, can name who these commissioners are, who appoint people to hold power over your constituents' lives, I would be amazed. It is also not just the permanent secretaries we must consider. The Transparency of Lobbying, Non-Party Campaigning and Trades Union Administration Act 2014 explains that a permanent secretary is a person serving in a range of government posts. This needs massively expanding to ensure it encompasses those top officials within state entities like the NHS. For instance, the CEO of the NHS is often seen as a godlike distant figure and not suitably accountable to this place. But let us be under no doubt. Horrific things happen if a culture is enabled where officials feel they are above policy instructions from the elected. At the current time, advancement in the civil service comes from appeasing the established networks like the Commission and the Minister for the Civil Service. But these people serve the nation, and their fortunes, therefore, should lay with this institution and not only an elite few within it. Now, I don't propose that we fix all the issues at once. I don't propose a baby out with the bathwater approach. I propose a modest solution that resets the relationship to a more traditional and, may I say, British footing. By this, I mean a process less invested in smoke-filled rooms with those from the executive, but rather a process which empowers this place. What I propose is a cross-party committee of both houses is formed to fold these appointments into understood due process. Appointments will be fixed term and renewable by this place, and that, at a stroke, will end the concept of job for life. Now, this is hardly revolution. It is a mix of established democratic process here and professional standards which industry outside would recognise. This will only impact a few dozen people at the top. This is hardly onerous and would not impact 99.9% of the civil service, I imagine. But it would change the culture at the top and therefore cascade down. If the upper echelons knew they are better overseen by this place, this whole cross-party institution, then they would ensure that those they manage are correctly supported, mentored, and indeed held to account. There are some siren voices who claim that this work could be just discharged by select committees holding more hearings, or that better training of ministers could fix all the issues. The bottom line is as follows: if you have vast power over the machinery of government, but don't feel that you have a sense of fealty to Parliament as a whole, then such ideas, I believe, are mere tinkering. This, frankly, is what we now do in a modest manner to gently course-correct a few errors and modernise and empower this institution. If we do not, the eventual reform could well need to be more radical in the end. The relief valve is simple and established. Professional industry processes via this accountable house. Let us act now, because if a trend of unaccountability continues to make people question who is really running Britain, then soon that gold standard I mentioned will be seen as fool's gold. Thank you.
That the honourable member have to leave to bring in the bill. The question is that the honourable member have leave to bring in the bill. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. Well, the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Who will prepare to bring in the bill?
Sir Michael Fabricant, Andrew Rosendale, the Right Honourable Mark Francois, and myself, Mr. Speaker.
Excellent. Giles Watling.
Senior Civil Service Accountability and Appointment Bill.
Second reading what day?
Friday, 17th of May.
Friday the 17th of May. The